Times when you felt like your life was most in danger?
My life was in danger all the time.
Welcome back to the Goodfellow Podcast. Today we're back again with Mr. Joe Barone, a former Mafia associate turned FBI informant, who's back again to share more stories and help us gain insight into the criminal empire that is the Mafia. Welcome back to the show, Joe. Thanks for coming on again.
Hey, thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So in today's episode, we wanted to focus specifically on the times during your undercover stint where you came closest to being compromised, or times when you felt like your life was most in danger.
My life was in danger all the time. 24/7.
Really?
Yeah, because don't forget, I was doing something wrong in my eyes, especially my eyes, working for the FBI when I grew up around the Mafia my whole life.
Right.
You got to remember one thing. I think I told your viewers here and other podcasts as well. My whole thing about going with the FBI was to find out who killed my father. I just hated the fact that I had to cooperate to try to find out. It was something I never did. I don't like to cooperate and help people who are actually more crooked, in my opinion, than the FBI, believe it or not. And I guess your next question might be, why do you think that way? Well, I think I told you in other podcasts and here as well. The Mafia is a secret society, and they try to keep a low key, but you know who's kind of connected. Well, the FBI put a badge on and pretend they're the good guys when they really are the bad guys.
Right.
Like I told before, I won't lie. Yeah, do they do a few good things? Maybe stop a terrorist act here or there or whatever the case may be. Yeah, that's cool. Appreciate it. But they're not what they seem to be. Back in the days, they used to call them Pinkerton men. And they says, back in the Western days.
Why'd they call them that?
I guess that was just a slang term for them. They used to say, "Mom, them Pinkerton men are coming." So they kind of like, and they used to go, "Get them guns out." But they were bad back then.
Right.
And let me tell you something. If you have a bad foundation, everything you do after that, it's always going to be a bad foundation. You could have a father who was no good, or a mom that was no good, or a brother was no good, and they will always be no good. And that's just the way it is.
So let me ask you, going back to what I was saying a second ago,
Okay.
off the top of your head, what comes to mind first when I ask you, when did you feel your life was truly in danger? As in, when did you feel like, the jig's almost up?
Well, there was many a times that, I mean, like I said, I always worried about being caught because, and what I mean by worry, I thought, to be honest with you, sometime I was going to get caught sooner or later. I just had such a focus on what I was doing that I acted as if I was really a gangster, because no matter what I was doing, where I was, whether I was in public or alone, I always had to be a gangster. I had to pretend to be that tough guy, this guy, whatever the case may be, because any slip up would be the end of it. It was like, here, one time my friend Dominic, and you guys know Dominic Sicali, Mafia Roundtable, who I'm actually co-hosting with him. And there was a time where he had told me, I guess I knew he was going to propose me for a membership, because he asked me in the car, and I think I kind of told you in previous episodes that we don't really say we're going to propose you or we're going to open the books on you, that kind of thing like they do on TV. He says to me, we were in the car together, and he just mouthed the words to me. He says, "Do you want this life?" And I said, "Yes." And then we started talking about Mikey Knows. Mancuso was actually the boss of the Bonanno family now, which is...
What was he at the time when this conversation went down?
Mikey Knows, I don't know if he was a captain then. He might have been. I think he might have been at that time.
Okay.
Maybe even more than that. I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember. Dominic was my captain.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I still think of Dominic as my captain sometimes. I don't know why. I guess he always fits that role for me. But, and I knew when he said that to me that Mikey Knows was going to be the next guy, and then we kind of went into it a little bit, and I knew I was going to have to be in on getting rid of him. whacking him.
Right.
So, but Dominic also gave me another hint. One of the other hints was, he says, from now on, I'm going to introduce you with nothing but to wise guys. That's it. And then I knew right away that this was my time. And it didn't happen for me overnight like it did for him. But that's okay. I felt honored at that time. Because like I told you before, there's certain people in the mafia, some of these guys are real jerk-offs. Some of them are real, I mean, I can't even tell you. I mean, you might have heard stuff from all kinds of different people on other podcasts, how there's some people in the mafia like, how the hell did they even get to be here? You know what I mean? But, Dominic and stuff, because of who he was trying to teach me, and at the same time, he was testing me. And I think I mentioned one time when he called me down, which was not just the first time, to meet him in 15 minutes. And
when was this? What time of day?
This was another time he had asked me to meet him at his cousin's house, and he says, meet me in 15 minutes. I asked him if I could have 20, and then he said, yeah, but make sure you're there in 20. So, of course, I went down, but on the way down, I called up my FBI handler that I was working with, Vinny Pizzuti, and I told him what was happening, and he always knew that something could happen too. As a matter of fact, at my trial, my attorney had asked him, because he kept saying, oh, the mafia is not like what it used to be, and this and that. And to some degree, he was right. I mean, it's not like it used to be as far as being really powerful as, like they used to be. But they still kill you when they got to kill you, trust me.
Right.
So he had said to him, he says, was Joe's life ever in danger? He said, oh, all the time. Now, he admitted that at my trial. So I didn't need him to admit it. I knew it was all the time, too, because he always said to me, the number one thing is to protect your identity. That's the most important thing you do. No matter what, don't tell anybody what you're doing. And like I told in previous podcast, the only person I ever let know really that I was doing anything was, at that time, my friend was Pete Savinello from New Rochelle. Because I figured, well, I had to tell somebody. Because I figured he was my friend, which I was sadly mistaken. He was never really my friend. He just used me as everybody else did back then for my, and I say political affiliates, is because I was in the mafia, because I was able to handle myself in the street. And it was nice to know a guy like me in the street back in those days. So I just thought that by telling him, God forbid, if I did have to meet my untimely death or whatever, he would try to find out and, get to the bottom of it. But to be honest with you, he wouldn't have did anything. I know that now, because he's scared of his own shadow too. So I did meet him, and then there was a time, and then everybody was like, wow, what's going on? And she said to me, what's going on with you and my cousin, man? So I don't know. And I was nervous, I'm not going to lie. I was afraid. You remember one thing I tried to tell people about Dominic before. Dominic was nice. He gave everybody kind of like a lot of leeway, but once he got something in his head and he got angry, I seen him. He was no joke.
What type of thoughts were going through your head when you're on the way to a sit down like that, or to a meeting like that? It's 9 o'clock at night. Someone says be there in 15 minutes. You're an undercover agent. What type of thoughts are you having?
I thought I was definitely going to be killed. Really? How I was going to be killed, I didn't know. Now, I know Dominic. He was true to the life. And as much that he cared about me and loved and respected me, he would have shot me. And to be honest with you, I think I told in the previous podcast with Dominic, I think if I would have had anybody have to shoot me, I would have rather that it had been him, because I had respect for him, and I knew he would have had to do what he had to do, and I would have wanted him to get the credit for doing it to me.
As the honorable man that he is.
Exactly.
Right. Instead
of somebody else. I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked a lot of other people that he hung around with. I liked Anthony Donato. Right. I liked Anthony Aiello. And Anthony was a tough guy, and he was serious. I always liked people who were serious in that life. Like I said, there was a lot of, believe me, not everybody in the mafia is who they are. There was other guys that were serious, like you probably guys heard of Gene Borello. I never had the privilege of meeting him, or the pleasure, but he was a no-nonsense guy. I like people like that, people even talk about politics. They say President Putin is, oh, he's no good, he's this and that. Well, I don't know about all of that. You know, that's one person's opinion. But I like when he says something, you could bet something's going to happen, and I like that. Dominic was the same way. We had to go to some places, plenty of places. We had to be do what we had to do, and believe me, it was going to happen. And that's what I like. I didn't have to get nervous or anxious about it or excited about it or anything, because I knew that, and then all of a sudden get disappointed. It was going to happen no matter what, and I like that. But you got to remember, at home I had back in those days I had an arsenal of weapons. Matter of fact, unfortunately, I lost a lot of the arsenal because I gave them to people who I thought would hold them for me and keep them. You know, people who never.
What's the reason for doing that?
Well, I didn't want to have the guns at my house. I was an ex-felon. I wasn't supposed to have a gun.
Oh, okay, right.
And I had a couple of guns in my house when I got pinched. You know, and took on my second bid. I had a 9mm and I had a 357, and they were nice guns. But I had to have them because, listen, like I said, I'm not the toughest guy in the world. But if you're gonna come to get me, it's not going to be as easy as you think.
You better come heavy.
You better come.
They say.
Yeah, better come heavy. Yeah, you better come heavy. You better be ready. And because listen, they're not going to send one guy.
Right.
I mean, look, there was a guy, Anthony Spiro. He was a boss in the Banana family too. I was working with some people in Brooklyn at that time in the early stages of me getting around everybody when I first come home on my first bid, and Anthony Spiro was a good guy. But when there was a guys, these was some tough guys from Bath Avenue. I think some of them flipped anyways, but they still were no joke. But one of the guys pushed Anthony. Well, what do you think happened to him? His own friends had to come, and he was hiding and everything. But they came and they got him and they killed him because that's what they had to do. Yeah, and that was their friend. They grew up with this guy. They did everything. They did work with this guy. They did everything with this guy. Partied with him, whatever it may have been, you know. And they had to kill their own friend. So I was always on the lookout, as I am now. Let's face it, I'm never going to be at rest no matter what happens, because it's not even from the Mafia. I'm worried about the FBI setting me up. They tried to set me up even after, because I beat them in court. The FBI are way more efficient because they have the public image of being the good people. They can put you in the newspapers and say that you are no good, and it's up to you to prove yourself innocent. Okay, and there's a level of portrayal. Like I said before, your girlfriend might go with your best friend or something, and it hurts, and you get over it, and whatever the case may be. But there are some people and levels of betrayal that you just can never get around. You just can never accept it anymore. I mean, if a guy robs my house once, and he can come up with the whatever reason, what it may have been. I'm a junkie. I got a gambling disease. Joe, I needed the money. Whatever it may be. Do you really think I'm going to let the guy back in my house? I mean,
right.
You know, it just makes sense. So, I tell you the truth, I was worried about being betrayed and getting killed by the FBI because they had offered me the witness protection program.
They had offered you it?
More than once, actually, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well,
why did you not take it?
Well, first of all, they exposed me to everybody and told everybody I was cooperating. Nobody ever knew. In all the 18 years, I was very fortunate, very fortunate. You talk about being afraid. Every day I was worried, of course, not, that I was going to get killed.
Well, listen, you hear people going undercover for 6 months and having trouble with it. Well, never mind 18 years. That's a long time.
There was a guy from the Hells Angels who they gave him, I think, $1 million or something like that for working 1 year undercover with the Hells Angels. And you know what he said on an interview when I saw this? It was a while ago. He said he wished he never done it. How's that? Okay? So the $1 million that he got, he still wishes he never done it.
Right.
And you can keep the $1 million. What do you think I have to say in my life after 18 years of doing this? You got to remember, like I said, there was a lot of jerk-offs in the Mafia, but there was also people I cared about and I liked.
Like Dominic.
Dominic was one of them. And he tried to help me, teach me things, show me certain things. I mean, I knew some things, but he was around, he was kind of being more groomed for it, where my father didn't really want me, I don't think, in it, but, showed me little things, but not like the way Dominic was. Dominic was more involved as opposed to what his life was. But we had similar backgrounds in that respect.
Right.
But you know, this, first of all, the mafia life was not what I really wanted in the first place. Look, it's better just to, you know, that's why I laugh at people who, you know, they like guys like Joey Molino, and they say, oh, look at a nice guy and stuff like this. I'm like, you realize who the guy really is, or you don't know? This guy's he's a stone cold killer from what I understand. I never met him, but I know. You have to be able to, even if you're not they're a tough guy, there's the smart guys, there's all kinds of different people, but each one of them is ready to pull the trigger because that's what they got to do. This is part of that life. And it's glamorized, but look, when Dominic and I were younger, and even before us, it looked like that life was something special, you know, to something to be looked up at. But when you're in it, that's how you know things are bad. It's like this. You get a job and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait. I'm going to be working on Wall Street. Oh, this is great. Or, man, I'm going to be working at a car dealership. I'm going to sell cars. I'm going to make money. I'm going to, you know, drive a nice car. But then when you get in there, you're like, hey, wait a minute. This is not all cracked up what I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? This is not what it's not cracked up, you know, to be that. And that's what the mafia is. I mean, look. I'll go back to the part where I was saying about the how I had to like hide in my house, like in a way, or how I locked all the doors, made it look like somebody was home, leaving the TV on.
Right.
Sometimes I would have the pillows propped up in my bed and sleep in another bedroom. I had, like I said, I must have owned at that time like 30 guns.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent big money on them. Matter of fact, the guy who sold me the guns never had the FBI go to him. Now, you see, this is what I'm trying to say. And the other people who held the guns for me, not one knock on their door by the FBI. If I was a rat, you know. These were my friends, and they were there to help me, and they're just regular people. And they tried to do me a favor. Did they get scared and get rid of the guns when I got arrested? Yes. In a way, I don't blame them, but they should have had a little more confidence in me. But I understand, and I'm not so mad. I just wish that all that money I had and all those guns I had was good. Matter of fact, I had property upstate where way in the woods. It wasn't like you put a key under a rock at your front door or something, or under the planter in case you forget your key one night. Well, my rock was way in the woods. You couldn't even tell. Matter of fact, don't laugh. That's where the runny really is. But no, I'm only kidding. But I hope nobody goes up there and finds out where I had property. But anyway, that's where I was able to hide stuff too. And you have to be able to know some angles. You know, Dominic and I are going to tell a story about how he evaded the FBI once. He might have told the story. I'm not sure. I won't say it here, but it was it was excellent the way he did it. But
let me ask you. I wanted to I want you to elaborate. A second ago, you mentioned you were in a car with Dominic, and he said something about Mikey Knows.
Yes.
Cuso. And so, what ended up coming of that? What?
Mikey Knows wound up getting arrested before the hit was ever carried out.
And it was going to be you that was supposed to carry out the hit?
I think it was going to be me and Dominic together. And, you know, because there was no love between Dominic. As a matter of fact, Mikey Knows was okay, remember I told you there was jerks in there? Well, he was one of them.
Right.
Now here he is, the boss of the Bonanno family. How did this ever happen? Oh, my God. I could probably... Dominic would probably be able to know more of them to be a better boss than any Mike Mancuso any day of the week.
Wow, so he was almost...
Yep.
He was almost offed by you.
Yeah.
But now, because that never went through, and he is now the boss of the Bonanno crime family.
You know something?
Wow.
That's true, yes. And you want to laugh. And Dominic, I don't even know if I've even discussed this with him yet, but I'm going to say it here because I'm going to send him this video again because that's what I do. I don't hide nothing from my friend. I didn't know. Now, he had the okay to whack Mikey. Now, I never knew that. But there was such bad blood between him and Mike, I thought Dominic was just going to do this on his own.
Oh, wow.
And I had such a rapport with Dominic, and I was so close to him that I didn't really care, because I still would have did it with Dominic because of the respect I had for him, and he wouldn't have had a chance, Mike. I'm going to tell you right now, you don't.
And you were already an informant at this point, right?
Yep.
Okay.
But there was a level of the. I mean, I was cooperating with the FBI. So how was I going to say no to Dominic? Number one. Number two is I didn't want to say no to Dominic. Okay. I don't feel like it, but Mikey Nose was a jerk, and there's some people, like I said before, you want to collect money from somebody, you usually, now the new thing is you get some collateral. You don't have to hurt nobody, but there's some of them still you want to give them a smack because they got to come to them.
Right.
Mikey Nose is one of those guys who he's got a disposition. You just want to slap him. He's lucky that he was able to back down from Dominic, because it might have come this close. Dominic was ready to smack him at any time, and that would have been it.
That would have led to a war between the well, was he? You were in which family again?
I was in the Bonanno family.
Okay, so it was same family, but a war within the family at that point.
It could have created that, but Dominic would have won, because Dominic was, believe it or not, Dominic was always, it's kind of weird, but he was in the right. Mikey Nose was just an asshole. Okay, he was just almost kind of doing things on his own, acting like he was somebody that he wasn't. Dominic never acted like anybody he wasn't. He just who he was, and that was it. And that's why I liked and respected him, because he was who he was. He didn't even need a button to be who he was. He just was the same guy he was there. The only difference was when he got straightened out, he had a button. But basically, he had people that did work with him or helped him out. I met him before he became a wise guy, and I was willing to help him out.
Oh, you knew him before the life?
Oh, sure. Before he got straightened out.
Right.
Not only that, though, we were going to do something later on. We talked about things, and I'll have to go over it with him before I air anything. Before he even got straightened out, he actually showed me what to do then, or talked to me a little bit. And so, yeah, I would have been with him in the street. It doesn't matter whether he had the button or not.
Let me ask you, was there any things you had to change about your personality or change about your daily routine after you became an informant and started kind of having that paranoia, walking around with that every day?
Years ago I was told that if you got a flat tire and it's facing the street side, don't fix it. Walk away from the car. Because when you bend down to fix the tire, that's when they can drive by real quick, stick the gun out the window, and just shoot you in the back. And it's easier that way.
Wow.
That's just one thing. I used to have to take different routes home. When I met with the FBI, my handler, I was worried about if somebody saw us. Where would you guys meet? Well, it's kind of funny.
You guys would, like, meet in a cafe or something?
No. We had to meet, believe it or not, I know this is going to sound kind of funny. We used to meet at Taco Bell once in a while. Because nobody I knew that was a wise guy or anybody that I knew was going to eat Taco Bell.
Wow, that's clever.
Exactly. So if they would have saw me in Taco Bell, the first thing they would have said was, what the hell is he doing in here? Because I wouldn't have eaten Taco Bell. I think I might have eaten Taco Bell only when I met the handler. I think it was one time when I ate a chicken burrito and it went right through me. I said, I'm never eating this shit again. But I met him in Taco Bell a couple of times. And the Taco Bell was right across the street in New Rochelle from the FBI headquarters. I was like, look, you're going to have to drive a little farther from now on. So we did. We'd meet in places, in different places where I wasn't known, in Yorktown or some weird places somewhere on Mamaroneck Avenue. Maybe I would hope nobody saw me. I would sit at this table. He'd sit over there. It was that kind of thing. Then they moved the headquarters, the FBI headquarters, to White Plains, right across the street from Bloomingdale's. So then I would meet him in Bloomingdale's parking lot. And one time I went up there, and I think I told the story on Mafia Roundtable. He was Italian, Vinny, and Vinny, what a surprise, right? He was Italian. So I had a CD in the car, and it was Tennessee Ernie Ford, 16 tons. So I says, hey, Vinny, you know this song? And the song comes on, and he knew word for word. He started singing it in there. And so he sang the whole song. And we were in there going like this, and we were singing. I was born one morning when I mean, he just knew the whole words, and it was pretty good. That's the kind of rapport that he tried to have with me, because I knew him for all those years. But you could tell there was a change going down, because there was a time when he said to me, I actually have paperwork on this, that they couldn't protect me anymore. They couldn't protect me, and what I mean by that is they couldn't protect my identity.
Why is that?
Because they said that something was being changed in the upper echelons of the government or whatever, and only a few people knew that I was working undercover. Only like maybe 1 to 2 FBI agents or whatever the case may be. But now they said they couldn't keep me as a secret, as an informant
Within the FBI or
in
in
the FBI.
Okay, gotcha.
And within, so now, listen, you got to remember, even if an assistant U.S. attorney or the U.S. attorney themselves wanted to know something about who gave them the information about something, that's bad. You got to remember, a lot of attorneys who worked for the government or whatever the case may be, they want to go into private practice where the money is. How do we know that attorney is not going to say, I know an FBI informant, his name is Joe Barone?
Right.
You don't know. So, you know, so I actually walked away from the FBI for a little bit. And you know, there I was out in the street again, and I said that I'm still not getting to the bottom of what happened with my father. I says maybe these people will find out sooner or later, and I happened to discuss this with, you know, various people. You mean to tell me in 18 years, not one informant said, "Hey, listen, man, you know, I know something about who killed Joe Barone or whatever." So, you know, I mean, come on, really? Nothing ever come out of that?
Do you think even if they did have information, do you think they'd withhold it from you?
You know, I don't know. You know, I knew that he was Vinny Pizzuto was kind of like a how could I say it the right words? I'm not really diverse in so many things, but he was like a profiler, like a guy who can look at you and or know you and kind of like know what would trigger you. You know, like as a couple, you know, the girl knows what's going to make her man upset or mad or jealous or whatever, and vice versa.
Right.
Well, he was the type of guy that would know that if he told me that the mafia killed my father, that would trigger a response with me. And now, of course, if that's really true, that's what really happened. I was angry. I hated everything. I was sad, mad. You know, you go through different stages of your feelings and emotions because of what happened. You know, I mean, right. Here it is. You, why would they do this to my father? He was a good guy, but over the years in the mafia and the life that I was leading and all the stuff that I heard, you know how many people that in the mafia that were killed for no reason, because maybe they were suspected of something, or guy didn't like them for some reason, or they were jealous, or they wanted their property, or they wanted their girlfriend, or whatever it might have been. I mean, let's face it, you know, once you got, there's an old saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Most people know that saying. And it's been even in there was a movie out, the Man in the Iron Mask with Leonardo DiCaprio. What did he do? He was in love with this girl. This guy signed up that was her future husband. He made him go into war, and then he made him go to the front of the line and get killed. And he lied to the girl and said, well, you know, I tried to keep him far from the fight, but, you know, he wanted to just go to the front. That was a lie. And this is how they justify everything. The FBI does the same thing. They try to go, well, we had a word, we had a tip, we had this. It's all lies. It's just what they want. And at that moment, they only can see one thing. Whatever's good for them, whether it's they need you to help cooperate or know something about this guy or that group. And that's the way it is. But I mean, I had to take a lot of precautions. You know, like I said, you almost start believing your own lies, that you're a real wise guy and everything like that. Look, at one time, maybe one time it was glamorous. Maybe one time it seemed like it was good. Because everybody seems that they want to have something. People join cults. You see people with those Hare Krishna people dancing around. They've been Jehovah's Witnesses. Everybody seems that they want to belong to something. So, you know, what's a good fit? Well, I'm Italian, so basically the Mafia sounds like an organization you want to be in. But they double-cross you. They pretend that they're all together, like I said in previous other episodes. That's not true. the level of betrayal. Look what they did to my friend Dominic. You think Dominic was afraid to go to prison? Not at all. Did 10 years for a crime he didn't even commit. He got ratted on for something he didn't even do. He did, I don't know, it was like 10 years or something like that. And he didn't blink an eye, okay?
Wow.
And then all of a sudden now he goes away again. They want to strip him of everything they had. He wasn't even sentenced yet. He wasn't even nothing. But let me ask you a question. Somebody's doing something to protect the family. You don't want to help the guy out. You don't want to say, hey, thanks. I mean, you didn't even get a thank you. They took everything from you. Why? What about all the legitimate businesses he had? Never mind whatever else he was doing. They betray you. The FBI betray you. Sometimes your girlfriend and boyfriends betray you. I mean, look, everybody's doing it because it's what they want at the time. If you want to be something good in this life, you got to know what you want. That's why I said that mafia life wasn't for me. I was going to be a postman. I'd have been happy getting married to somebody I would have been in love with, had a children, raised them, and that would have been it. Who cares? I don't need to prove that I could fight this guy or shoot that guy or whatever the case may be. You come to my house and start trouble, you'll get it. That's simple. That's easy. Anybody would do that. Even a guy that doesn't know anybody is going to protect himself. But I had to live that life, and that was the only way I knew in my heart and mind that I could try to find out who killed my father. And here's another thing. It's not like I could go, hey, I couldn't say to Dominic, do you know who killed my father? Or my friend Chili. Have you heard anything about my father? It's not, you know.
You can't ask questions.
You can't ask questions. It's not like that kind of thing. Even before I was.
What would happen if you did ask that question? They wouldn't trust you as much?
No, because they would like this. They would know I had an agenda, a certain thing. Look, you're always under the microscope. Excuse me a second. No espresso this time. I need a soda.
Sorry, espresso machine was down.
Yeah, exactly.
We're working on that.
Thanks. But you're always under the microscope because, listen, you not everybody in the mafia, like I told you, these guys are smart. They're not, they're cunning. So they'll know right away if you're off step, something's off with something, the way you're talking, the way you move, you're acting strange.
Yeah, what type of stuff after you became an informant that sort of like you were like, oh man, I can't do that anymore because that'll draw suspicion, even if it was something you would normally do before you went informant. You
have to keep a certain level all the time. In other words, you have to be a certain way. If you're like one of the guys that could be tough all the time, they got to be tough all the time. If you get somebody that's like business minded all the time, you kind of got to keep that same level. I tried to stay and keep my distance a lot of times, and Dominic knew that himself too. He knew I'd be out of my comfort zone doing certain things or whatever. They can read you really fast, within seconds, just like I can read. Look, I remember. I told a person, like, one time they were coming to pick up a mattress at the house I was living at the time, and he was a big dude and everything like this. And so the woman selling the mattress was, at that time, was my mother-in-law. And she said, wow, you're a big guy. She says, how tall are you? So I said how tall he was, and I even said how much he weighed. And he looked at me, the guy, and he went, yeah, that's exactly how much I weigh. How'd you know? But because I was in that life, I have to size you up quick. I have to know if you're carrying a gun. I have to see what's what. It was like something I learned real fast because you need to know. I mean, you're conducting a certain way of business. You need to know. Just like, anywhere we go, I would have to know the angles. If we had to meet somebody, I'd go there. If I had enough time to go there days in advance, I'd see different times what to do. Just like now, how I look over my shoulder, or I could see somebody that's doesn't fit in this area, you know what I mean? Are they on vacation or whatever? I told you this last week that I can almost tell you every car in my parking lot and who drives it. I be careful when I walk upstairs in one of the apartment buildings I used to live in, because I moved. When I was in that life, I must have moved 1, 2, maybe like 4 different times.
Oh wow!
And that gets tiring too. And sometimes I'd only stay in one place a year. It was definitely more times now. I'm thinking about the other place in Eastchester. So yeah, I kept moving around and going up the stairs. I would go a different way up the stairs. I wouldn't even take the elevator sometimes. Well, depending on how it was, I knew different ways to walk through the apartment building I was going through. I had the super make me up a different key for a different door.
These kinds of things take an emotional and a mental toll on you after time. I mean, how does that surface?
You know, I lost a lot of sleep.
Sure.
Had a lot of nightmares, which I still get. But when your head hits that pillow and you try to relax, you're reliving all these things in your head. I mean, I never really, I didn't take any drugs to try to help myself because I didn't want to get hooked on that, because that's real easy to do when you have that kind of lifestyle. You know what I mean? But
was there a lot of guys you came up with that got hooked on drugs and that sort of thing?
A lot of these guys, they said they didn't do coke, and a lot of them did. A lot of them drank. You know,
but drugs were, for the most part, kind of frowned upon within, or was it just selling drugs that was frowned upon?
The selling the part was, but they used it. They listen.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, depends on who you were in there. They didn't tell anybody. You know, listen, ain't nothing to nobody. You know, that kind of thing. They give it a look.
Gotcha.
But they were all doing something in what one way or another. You know, you're not even allowed to have sex a certain different ways in there, and they're still doing it anyway too. Come on, you think this guy's not going to do this certain things to this girl or whatever? That's not going to happen, you know. But that's why they're all, in a lot of ways, a lot of them are really hypocritical, and they're hypocrites actually.
Right.
But I had to go different ways. I still do that now. I'll take the highway instead of the shortcut, and I go for a little ride. I still automatically look who's following me. I'll pull into a gas station where I know there's cameras in there, and I'll get out, look like I'm gonna. I can't tell you how many packs of gum I got in my car just because I had to pretend like I'm going to buy something. Matter of fact, I had to do that once. I remember when the FBI was following me before I took my first pinch, and I always had a gun with me even back then. And I was driving, and I seen this dude following me. I said, okay. So I went into this place. I took the gun out of the car and put it in this planter. It had like one of those, this big thing with a tree in it. I went in there and got a hot chocolate and a donut. I walked out, and then I drove again, and I stopped, and I made him like to try to see if he got on the side of me, and I got on the side of him. I said, "Who the fuck are you?" And he says, "I'm nobody." He says, "Why? Who are you?" I said, "Nah, why are you following me?" He said, "Well, you were going kind of fast. I just wanted to see who you was." Well, he was there later on at FBI headquarters when I took my first pinch.
Really?
Yeah, I says, "I remember you. You shaved your mustache." He says,
Wow.
"Yeah, that was me." Yeah. So I happened to circle around again, and nobody knew I hid the gun there. There was a time there weren't that many cameras back in those days. It was the early 90s. And I went back and got my gun. That was a .45. I don't want to lose that. You know what I mean? So I went and got it. And then I went to the girl whose house I was seeing. She lived off of Morris Park, and I told her to put this in the thing with the tomatoes. And I left it there for a few days. Anyways, you know, so little things you do like that, you know. But I always look over my shoulder, even when I'm in a crowd. I sometimes don't like to be in crowds because they can come stab you, shoot you, they do anything they want. Look, I got a lot of scars. I got scars from beer bottles, stab wounds. I got a lot of stuff like that. I got people who used to be my friends, like a guy like Charlie Buono. Could have been a nice guy, but he got hooked up on drugs. Back in the days, they used to do Black Beauties, which was like speed. And if you're as old as me, you remember those Black Beauties. He used to do 2 of them at a time. And he said it felt like his head was like bees were buzzing in it, like ants were crawling all over it. And he turned out to be a real jerk off, too. A nice guy, tough guy. I'm not going to say he's not tough. My friend Lenny had a fight with him once. Then they got mad at me. Lenny got mad, said I shouldn't have pulled over. I said, both of you guys wanted to have a fight. That was it.
You were driving and they were fighting in the back.
They were fighting in the car, and I pulled over. They got out, and they had a fight, and they had it out, and that was it. People were yelling, "Stop it out there!" It was late at night, 2:00 in the morning. They were rolling around garbage cans and everything. But he said, "Why'd you pull over, Joe?" I said, "Well, you guys wanted to fight. I'll let you fight. I mean, you know, it was going to happen sooner or later." And then Lenny forgot that I told him one time because Charlie said he was going to kill Lenny at his garage when he goes and gets his car. And Maybe I should have said nothing to Lenny. Maybe I should have, like I did. I don't know, but I didn't want to see Lenny get killed because I knew Charlie would kill because he robbed my house once and took my gun and supposedly killed somebody. I don't know if that's true or not. But, Charlie turned out to be a junkie and a jerk off, and that's it. We had a lot of fights, though, out there in the street. He was a hard hitter. He had a fist like a sledgehammer, and if he hit you'd feel it. But he could take a good beating too. He just couldn't last that long because he had asthma.
Gotcha.
A lot of people didn't know that, but we used to be driving, and we wondered why we always got into a fight every weekend. He used to be in the back seat giving people the finger. We didn't know that, and so the people would start yelling at us. We're like, "Who are these people?" And so, boom, we pulled over. Now the fight, and that was it. Every weekend there was a fight because of him. So, but I was concerned. You can say that.
What was your plan B? What was your kind of escape plan if you did get outed or compromised? Did you have a backup plan?
Well, the only backup plan I really had. Look, like I said, I had a lot of weapons. I did carry a gun all the time, even though I wasn't supposed to. And I had a lot of money at that time, and had a lot of money buried too. Like I said, the big rock.
Right.
But I had other outlets to go, and I don't want to disclose all my backup plans because I don't want to give anybody good ideas and stuff like that. I'm not going to help anybody out. They got to get their own plan like I had to. But I could have took off anytime I wanted to. I don't think I would have gotten that chance because there's like nobody came to me and said, Joe, we had a hit. The FBI never recorded anything. And would they have really told me? I think they might have, but I don't know. But it was definitely cause for concern for me all the time. It was always on my mind. Look, there was times I was having good times with various people in that life. And that's when they get you too, when you're relaxed, when you think everything's okay. Look, you guys, I always hate to refer to movies, but this always just helps me kind of explain things better. If you would have seen, I guess it was Goodfellows, and then they stabbed Barry in the back of the neck. He thought he was going to go, we're going to go to the diner? All right, yeah, let's go. Everything's good. Yeah, I'll pick up some pastries for Belle, his wife, and all of this shit. And as soon as he got in the car, they stabbed him in the back of the neck, killed him. So it's when your guard is down. They don't warn you. They want you to feel relaxed. They did that. Even Richard Pryor did a skit. He says, yeah, you remember that time he was talking about, he went back there, they didn't pay him some money, and they said, nah, these kids got a pair of balls on him, you know what I mean? And they told him a story about some guy from a Teamsters Union or something. They said, yeah, we took him out for drinks, having a good time. He says he was in the back of the limousine, he bent over to pick up his spilled drink. He says, boom, I popped him with the pick broke in his thing, and it was just like funny. Then he says to Rich Pryor, he goes, what's the matter, Rich, you all right? You want to go for a ride? So, they make you feel relaxed. It's easy to kill you that way. Look, like I told you about the guy that pushed Spiro. I forget the kid's name. He trusted his friends to come into the house. They knocked on the door, and he let them in because they were his friends. But your friend is your best friend's the guy that comes and kills you. That's the way it is.
In that life, that's who they send to get you, right?
Because you're gonna get close to him. You don't think he's really gonna have the whatever to kill you because you're his friend. Look. In the movie Once Upon a Time in America, and I don't really care for Robert De Niro anymore, especially the way he talked about Donald Trump. And don't get me wrong, I like Donald Trump, so I don't care who knows it. He's a no-nonsense guy, too. What they're doing to him is a shame. But he was in there with James Woods, and they had to do a piece of work. And so he says to me, I didn't want, James Woods says to me, look, I don't want to tell you, because I didn't, he says, one day they asked me to kill you. Another day they asked you to kill me. Are you all right with that? Because I'm not. You see, these guys grew up, they were poor. They did things to make money so that they can survive, they can live and have some sort of life. But now the wise guys got a hold of them, and because they had to join forces with them sooner or later to make more money. And now the guy went the bad route, and you see, he would have never killed his friend. Matter of fact, they get him years later, and his friend wants him to kill him because he could accept it from his friend at the end of the movie. And he says, I had a friend a long time ago, and if you guys watch the movie, you'll see it. But he didn't kill him even though he wanted to him. After he took all his money, took the love of his life, did all of this stuff, he still wouldn't do it. You see, that to me is a real man, because he loved his friend. But in that life, you have to do what you have to do. And that's why it's bad.
Can you share any memorable experiences where you're able to turn a potentially compromising situation into an advantage for your undercover operation?
That's kind of a good question. Not really. I mean, if you went to if there was we were going to have to go do something. Like Dominic and I talk about grabbing this kid Hippie, and because all the shit he was saying and everything, we went down to grab him, and believe me, we were packed. We were ready to go. It was 4 of us, and there was going to be nothing to stop us. There was no way in the world that I could have turned that situation around to make it better for me to on a cooperating side or something like that. When you're in it, you can't turn it around. It's not as easy as that. That's why the FBI, I think they were envious of me that I was able to work so good undercover and not get caught all those years. And I wasn't like what they said, because Greg Scarpa, who was, they called him the Grim Reaper in the Colombo family, supposedly he was undercover for a long time, and he worked both sides of the fence. He was still getting rid of people doing things, and they didn't care, because as long as the end justifies the means to them and they get what they want, they didn't care. But it's very, very hard to turn it around. The only way I was able to do it was I tried to keep a little bit of a distance, but you can't do that 100% either, because now they're like, what happened to Joey? Where is he? Because most of the people call me Joey in the Bronx. So they said, what happened to Joey? How come he's not here, or this or that? So it's very, very difficult to turn a situation around, I can't say, well, you sure you really want to do this or whatever?
Right,
There's none of that. This ain't a compromise. This ain't a sit down type of situation. That's the only time you can talk. If you're in a sit down, you don't agree to anything right away, especially if it's not in your favor. You have to say, I'll think about it, or whatever the case may be. And Dominic can explain it a lot better than I could. I never had to go, thank God, to a sit down. But Dominic, he matter of fact, I'm going to try to get Dominic. Maybe we can get on the show here.
Yeah, absolutely.
He can tell you some things too. You know what I mean?
I wanted to ask you, was there anyone that you knew personally that you were particularly nervous to be around? Someone that had like a better radar for kind of detecting BS that you tried to steer clear of, or that that type of thing.
That's a good question. I mean, believe it or not, there was most of the guys I hung around with were, you got a guy like Ace. He was matter of fact, Dominic's the one who gave him the name. He was like the Luca Brasi of that family. I mean, he was
which was a hitman, right?
Yeah, Ace was definitely capable. He did work. Didn't blink an eye.
How many people do you think he killed?
Well, I definitely know he killed Randy Pizzullo, but I don't know anybody else.
He's still alive, this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think he's coming out of prison soon.
Maybe we should just leave it at that then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But he's definitely no joke. And there was, these, like I said, these people are sharp. I mean, Dominic, of course, himself, he could sense something if something's off or wrong. Just I don't know if I was ever really concerned about one person. But
or how about any certain, like, I'm sure you wouldn't show up to like card games and stuff like that, or like, was there any certain situations that you steered clear of, like?
Yeah, I mean, like, I just tried to say I was doing my own thing. I didn't. If I was asked to come down someplace or whatever, of course I would go.
Right.
But I tried to be like not a loner. Matter of fact, there was a thing that Dominic said to me. He says they worry about you a little bit because you are a loner.
Really, he said that to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you see, you got no family. If you got no family, you got nobody to you want to hustle, you want to do things, you want to have your family life, you want to have this, you want to provide, but you also have to worry about your own family. I really had not that many people to worry about. That's why I kind of didn't really get close to anybody either, because I didn't want to have to worry about somebody hurting somebody. There was a story back in my town. There was a guy who used to work for the carting company in Rochelle, New York. I think it was they call him Chick Charla was his name, and he had a partner in the business, and the guy's partner had a girlfriend. The girlfriend was the wise guys got to her, reached out to her, and they wanted to take over the place for whatever reason it may have been. Well, there it was. They set up Chick Charla. He'd come home one night, late at night. His mother and father were tied up, and they heard his son getting shot and killed upstairs, and they tied him up. Yeah, I mean, he might have. I don't know if he begged. I don't know if he said, please or whatever. They just killed him. That was it.
Terrible.
And then they killed the other guy, his partner. The girl set him up as well, and then they killed the girl.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the girl thought she was safe. You ain't safe.
Why they were afraid of her talking?
Oh yeah, they're not gonna leave any loose ends. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Listen, if the girl can set up the guy and not even think about it, the girl's not worth anything anyways. I mean, if she's doing that,
right?
I wouldn't trust her. The same thing like the FBI. When they offered me the witness protection program, would you take the antidote from the same people who gave you the poison? They exposed me. They exposed me for no reason. They didn't have to arrest me, but they wanted me to work with them.
How did that get out to the press so quick?
Oh. Everybody thinks that the media in this country is whatever, sacred or whatever. Nah. They do whatever the government tells them to do, too, most of the channels.
Do you think it's the FBI that volunteers that information, or do you think it's reporters that go I just wonder, how did it blow up and then all of a sudden your face is on the front page of the newspaper a week later?
Didn't James Comey say that he released information to somebody that worked in a school, one of his professors, in order to leak it out to the media? He admitted that himself. This is not me making it up. Yes.
Wow.
Okay. So here it is. If an FBI agent is doing that, where's his loyalty? Isn't he supposed to try to keep things the way they're supposed to be? Compartmentalized, okay? I mean, give me a break. It's like there's nothing sacred anymore. Listen, there's no respect out there. There's nothing, and that doesn't go just in the regular life. That goes in all this other life with in the White House and everything like this. Look, I didn't really care for President Obama, but there was a lady yelling him on the tarmac, and she was pointing at him like this and everything like that. Now, like I said, I don't really have no love for the man or anything like that, okay? But he still was the president at the time. She didn't even have respect for him pointing in his face like this. I don't remember what it was, and I forget it. And I bet you if somebody out there that's got resources, they could look it up and see that I'm not lying about that as well. And as a matter of fact, anybody wants to look up anything, I got court transcripts. You could look it up yourself. You can do anything you just want, okay? Everything I'm saying is the truth because I had no reason to lie at my trial. I got no reason to lie now. I don't have no reason to lie ever. And also, a lot of other things are my feelings personally. I've lived it, So, but there's nothing out there like the FBI as far as what they do. We can't talk about that because it's still under investigation. Really? I got paperwork that's redacted. One line here, one line there. Right. They show you because it's all under investigation. No, they just don't want you to know the truth, and that's it. And thank God I have some paperwork that I'm going to show, and it's going to show a lot of the stuff. What I'm saying is right on the money. Excuse me.
So one last question before we wrap up here comes from user Sarah F241. Is that how did you handle interactions with people who may have been suspicious of your true identity, or was there any times when you felt that way?
Even if people always, like I said, in that life, they're always testing you. So I was pretty much ready for it. Because how could they prove it? You know,
Right.
Unless they had some kind of information from the FBI and they had somebody working for them. But they'll test you all the time. They'll throw a phrase out there, or they'll say something to see how you respond to it. If you would be like one of these guys, like, well, I would have did this or whatever. That's why I would have said, that's fucked up, or that's messed up, or something like that. I wouldn't lead on to anything, or I wouldn't volunteer.
You wouldn't take the bait.
That's right. I wouldn't take the bait. I wouldn't volunteer any information. You know, it's very. That's why I suffer from PTSD from the box being locked up within a prison. But all those old memories, all this old stuff, all that acting the way I didn't really want to be and stuff like that. It put put age on me. It just really messes with your head, because you have to sell your lie, you have to build a lie, you have to nurture that lie just to show who you are.
And you got to believe that lie too, right?
That's right. Because when you don't believe that lie and it starts fading away, it's curtains, brother. That's it, man. This is serious business. This is the real thing. Okay, it's not like I signed up for the military or something like that.
Right.
This was the only resource, in my opinion, that I had at that time to find out who killed my father.
And ultimately, that was the only reason that you turned to the FBI.
That was it, yeah. If I had another way to find out and everything like that, and I mean, I don't know exactly what I would have done if I would have found out if there was one guy, two guys, or who really was involved in that situation. I'd rather not say, because I don't know how I would have thought back then. But that was the only way I thought that I could get to the bottom of what happened, if that was even in fact really what happened. I don't even know anymore. I mean, it just seems kind of funny, after 18 years we never found out anything.
Do you think that information will ever come to light?
It's almost like, who killed President Kennedy? Who knows, really? Did they ever find the body of Jimmy Hoffa? Whatever happened to my old friend Ralphie Coppola from the Genovese crime family? I mean, even though I think I know what happened there, but who knows? I mean, hold on. This is true. See, it's true. Excuse me. But this is the real deal. But before you go or anything like that, there was some people who wrote some comments. I want to say thanks for everybody writing in on a comment. You have a website up if they want to ask any more questions.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. If we only had one question for this episode from the sent into our email. If anybody wants to ask Joe anything, ask any of our guests anything, ask me anything, you can ask it to our email, which is goodfellowpodcast@gmail.com. You can write it in to us right there, and hopefully you'll be in the next episode. So thank you, Joe, for coming on yet again.
No problem.
Always a pleasure having you on. You told a lot of really, really good stories today and very interesting information. And I hope everyone at home enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, and please subscribe. We really appreciate it. And thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.